Hey everyone, Tiffany here, your legacy brand strategist. I am joined by the amazing Rachel Redmond, and Rachel is an expert in women's wellness, and she has started a program called the Yin Way. I'm really excited to bring her on live today to talk about the branding process that she went through with me and reveal her brand new shiny website as well, and just share more about her work because her work in itself is also amazing. So Rachel, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk about my website and this whole process.
Yay, awesome. So yeah, before we dive into that, if you want to just tell people a little bit more about your background, the work that you're doing now, and then we'll talk about the Yin Way, how that came to life, and how how we got to where we're at with the website.
Sure. So I'm Rachel Redmond, and my background is in Eastern medicine. So I studied and trained in Ayurvedic medicine, which is a traditional medicine that comes from India. It's over 5,000 years old. And I'm also a doctor of Oriental medicine, and I'm trained as a licensed acupuncturist, herbalist, and there's a lot of things in between. So I really help people now with self-care in a different, like kind of from a different lens, and I'll talk more about that as it relates to the Yin Way. But yeah, I focus on women's wellness and health, and help people really try to take the pressure off themselves and just feel better in life.
So good and so important, especially after the year we've had in 2020. I think more people either had exposure to more self-care than they're used to, and they're like, I don't want to lose this.
Yeah.
And or people like me, where I didn't really, some people were slowing down. I felt busier than ever. So such powerful work. So yeah, before we dive in, and I would love to hear more about the Yin Way when we actually show the website, but I would love to hear from you, kind of how the process was for you going through the branding process. Kind of what were your biggest struggles or frustrations? Like what made you think like, I want to work on my brand and really get this clarity?
Yeah, so I was struggling because as a newer practitioner, as a newer entrepreneur, a few years ago when I started, I I actually hired somebody kind of right out the gate, and they built a brand and a website for me. I didn't like it. It was like so not at all what I wanted. And I learned that I was probably too new in the process to know what I really wanted to talk about at that point. And so I ended up using some of those branding elements, but then just recreating my own website on Squarespace. And so it was it was beautiful and it was fine, and people, navigated it just fine. But I kept thinking like it wasn't as professional as I wanted. It wasn't elevated like I wanted it to be. And the brand was very disjointed because it was just like a logo here, and, nothing was consistent. And as I gained more experience working with my clients and just growing my business over the past couple years, I really wanted to take my business and my brand to the next level and really create, as you say, like a legacy brand, something that I can live into and grow into and not need to change in 5 years because it doesn't fit, like something I can just add to and adapt as I grow and adapt myself. So that was a big struggle, was just kind of not knowing what I wanted in the way beginning, and then wanting to elevate it and like take it to the next level.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. And well said with the legacy brand. That is definitely the goal, is to get it lined up so you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time.
Yeah.
So before we jump in, I would just like to ask for the people joining us, which by the way, if you're joining us, please say hello. And if you have any comments, please let Rachel and I know. We always love to know where people are hopping in from. But I would love to know how going through the branding process, like what results are you most happy about, and what was the most impactful part of the process? Because I know there's multiple different pieces of the process itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of them right off the bat that really was kind of a side effect of the of the process was the community aspect. And there's some people that I've met in that branding cohort that I still, either follow on Facebook or support their business, or even, have connected with like over the years. So I always appreciate having opportunities to connect with other entrepreneurs and business owners. And that was a space that you created that allowed us to, to work through some of our own mindset blocks, and I always find I get so much more clarity when I can bounce ideas off of other people. And so I could bounce my ideas off you, but then others in the group. And it really helped me to really even believe in my own self and in my work, because there was a time that I struggled a lot with believing in my ideas and putting myself out into the world, and all of that self-doubt and imposter syndrome that comes up was very big for me, a very big thing I had to overcome. And I found that being in the group, I was able to, really feel like an expert and show up in the way that I wanted to, and kind of practice living into this newer, this more elevated version of myself that I was striving to get with branding and the website.
Amazing. And thank you for sharing that, because that's one thing. I always say that branding is a self-development process in itself, just like entrepreneurship is. Yeah. But we all have that. Some people have visibility blocks. Some people have imposter syndrome. Some people have all the things. And it really is a sacred space to work through that and market research. So that's the fun piece too. And I always have clients who, or potential clients who come on a call and be like, oh, I'd rather do one-on-one. I don't want to be a part of another group. And I really have to explain, this is not your typical group program where you're just left in the sea of people. It's just this really intimate, beautiful space. And it also serves as market research. So thank you so much for bringing that up.
And actually, I remember you having that conversation with me about, I was like, well, maybe I should just do this one-on-one with you. And you really told me the kind of the benefits of being in the group. And I was really glad that I did that. And I just also learned so much, because there was some trainings involved with it, and that really allowed me to explore my vision for my business and my values, and things that I know are really important, but I needed that space to be able to explore those things and kind of get that guidance around that.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, let's dive in. I'm super excited to show everybody your beautiful new website. Let me share here. Oh, I got to go back to the homepage. I was looking at it earlier. Okay, here we are. Yeah. So just gorgeous. And so, yeah, if you want to talk a little bit more about this, and it's so funny too, we could talk about the paintings in your background, how those are even on brand with this beautiful sunset picture. But I think, to start out, we have this rotating banner on the top that really shows your different sides of your personality. I think that's one thing that I've been really working on with people is static banners are really great, but having this really showcases like the different pieces of your personality, which is really awesome.
Yeah, I love that I was able to incorporate a few different pictures and just give it some movement, because I think so much of the work that I do is helping people find those moments and opportunities to shift in even like a small and teeny way. Mm-hmm. And so there's just a lot of subtle movement happening all the time in the work I do with clients. So I think this really just kind of encapsulates that, and also the simplicity that I strive to help people simplify their lives, their self-care, because I really don't believe that we have to, work harder to be less stressed. So strive for self-care. I think it's really about reorienting our perspective about self-care and about wellness. And so I like that it kind of speaks to that subtle movement.
That's so good. And then too, just the copy, that's a big piece. And I know obviously it's the same thing with the legacy brand. You want to get the foundations done, and then things will evolve over time. But getting the core messaging down is a really big key of this too. So, the idea of the self-care should be easy, not another thing to do on your to-do list, which is huge, especially for busy people like myself. I was like, amen, that is so true. It feels like another to-do list sometimes. But yeah, so then we developed this logo. You know, we went with the logo for your name, just really simple, clean, because that's really what you're like you're about, is simplifying everything in your life. And then the same thing with this Yin Way logo. This is, I'll let you talk a little bit more about the program, but from a visual sense, like just having this really serene, quiet water in the background and this really simple logo was really, you know, kind of encapsulated what the meaning of Yin Way is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so do you want to talk a little bit more about the Yin Way program
Sure.
and where that came from?
No, that was the question. Yeah. So the Yin Way is what I call my business, and it's also what I call my online program that I offer. And so as an acupuncturist and doctor of Oriental medicine, I think people are familiar probably with at least the yin yang, or you might say yin yang symbol that is a kind of universal, the black and the white symbol. And so one of the first things I learned in my training is that in order to help people find balance and to help their bodies heal, we have to balance this idea of yin and yang, the masculine energy with the feminine energy, the energy of activity and doing and being out in the world, and balance that with the energy of rest and going inward and nourishment. And so what I started to see in my clients and in myself, because I'm a very, like, I have a lot in my life. I have a 2-year-old and I work on my business. My husband's very busy in his work. We have a dog. It was just like a lot going on. So when my son was born, I really had to figure out a better way to be in the world, because there was just no time. There was no time to do all the dishes and clean all the bottles and like take care of my own self and work on my business. And so I felt like, you know, there just has to be a different way. And the Yin Way is that different way. And it's really a mindset shift and a philosophy that I teach my clients to live by. And it's this idea that we live in a world that values and prioritizes what we associate with the masculine energy, being busy and productive and always on the go. Mm-hmm. And that's all well and good, because there's not a good or a bad here. But what happens is, as a default, we tend to devalue and deprioritize things like rest and play and nourishment and self-care. And so in order to come back to the middle, we have to start to live more into our yin, because the yang gets so out of balance that we can't sleep. We have lots of stress. We might feel anxious. We might be tired. There's so many different things. And so what I found is that when we can just lean more into that yin energy and learn to cultivate that yin energy in our life, that creates balance, and that is self-care. And it can be so many different things. And it's really, it's so much about our intention behind the activities we choose and living a values-based life. And like Tiffany, you and I were just talking before we got on here, and you were saying that, you love to work, and work really feeds you and fills you up. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I try to help people see, is that work isn't necessarily, overworking isn't necessarily a bad thing if it really makes you feel alive and nourished. But on the other hand, there has to be some counterbalance to that in other ways that feeds your soul and nourishes, each person. So the Yin Way is really about living a life of balance, but I see balance as dynamic. It's not a set point. It's this try and live in like a life like this, where we're hot, so we take off our sweater, and then we're cold, so we put our sweater back on. It's dynamic, it's ever changing, but we try to avoid the extremes of the up and downs, which is like exhaustion and poor digestion and burnout and all those things. So the Yin Way is the path to balance.
So amazing. So everybody definitely check out the website if you want to learn more about Rachel's work, obviously, rachel-redmond.com. Also check it out to see, what good website design looks like. My team and I had so much fun working on this project with you, Rachel. So excited to reveal it to the world, and put it out there for you and all of the people that I know are going to get so much benefit from working with you. It's so amazing and again, so needed right now. So to wrap up, I would love to just hear any last thoughts about it. So those of you who are watching, it just so happens that Rachel and I are finishing up this project right now, and the new cohort for the Legacy Brand Foundations is starting in 2 weeks in January. And so 6 spots are already filled. So we have 6 more to go. And I would love for you, if you are like, yes, this is beautiful. I need a new website. I need my new messaging figured out. Definitely DM me and we can hop on a call and see if it's a good fit. So yeah, last but not least, Rachel, I would just love to hear if somebody's on the fence or they're like, I don't know if, my brand is important to work on right now or not. What would you tell them is like the takeaway from having gone through and done the work?
Yeah, I feel like there's a few, but I would say if you're on the fence, just know that you get so much more than a brand and a website. You get just everything that makes it all come to life, because you can have a website that lives on the internet and that does nothing for you. So it's really about giving it that energy and really figuring out your messaging and your why and your values and your vision for yourself and your business. And it's so much more than a website really, or a brand, because it's really, those are the structure, like that's the skeleton, but everything else in the program is what gives it life and energy. So it was such a wonderful process for me, and I learned so much and grew so much. And now I'm just so excited to be able to share it with the world, and a beautiful website that I love.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks again, Rachel, for being here. Everybody, I'll put the link down below to Rachel's site. And thank you for joining us today. And we'll see you soon for the next brand reveal.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.